Join in Blood Tide Coast. 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 I wonder what will happen first. Either I get into this instance, or I get carpal tunnel syndrome. I'm going with the latter. Come on. Howdy folks, and welcome back to another episode of Tyria Talk. My name is Richard Procopio, aka Bog Otter, and this show is all about Guild Wars 2. Today is episode number 60, and today we're going to be talking about the great Jungle Wurm boss fight that was introduced to Guild Wars 2 in the Origins of Madness patch. Now, if you have no clue what I'm talking about, let me just kind of give you a brief overview of what this is. This is an open world boss that they added to Blood Tide Coast, one of the zones. And it's on a 2-hour spawn timer, and it is really, really difficult. It is the most challenging content in the entire game. It's even harder than the Tequatl boss revamp that they did back in September, I think they did that. And it is, it's a huge, takes a lot of players, a whole zone full of players, and, you know, I'm not going to go over all the specifics of the mechanics of the fight, but just in general, what you need to do to beat this is you have to split the zone into 3 different groups. They do a quick escort quest, then they have to fight one of the 3 worm heads that come out of the ground. These worm heads are immune to damage unless certain conditions are met. You have to do certain things as a group to actually make it vulnerable, and then it goes into a vulnerable state where you can DPS it and hurt it for just a few seconds, and then it becomes invulnerable again. So you have to repeat that over and over again. The trick is the 3 separate groups that are in 3 separate areas on the map have to kill their worms within 1 minute of each other. If one of them dies early and the other 2 aren't ready to kill theirs, then the event fails and it's over, and you have to wait till it spawns again in 2 hours. So once all 3 heads are killed within 1 minute of each other, phase 2 spawns, and then the flopping severed heads of these worms need to be killed, and you have 2 minutes to kill these 3 worm heads. And if you do all that, then you succeed in the boss kill. So that's generally what's going on with this boss fight right now. Currently, as of recording this, the Desolation server over in the EU was the first and only server to actually get the kill. Blackgate, which is my server, has been trying really, really hard over the past week, trying to get it down. We've been close so many times. We've had it very, very close to getting it down in phase 2 with 2 of the heads dead, and one of them still living. And we've actually had several times where there's different issues with the fight. There's some reports that you can burn one of the heads too quickly. Like the health pool for these heads is not consistent. Sometimes you take 4 or 5 of these burn phases to get the health down, and sometimes you can get the entire worm's health down in one shot. So there's just little things like that have been hiccups. One time, one of the severed heads didn't actually pop out of the ground. It was not attackable, so we killed the other 2 heads, and the third one didn't come out of the ground. So little issues like that, I say little issues like that have cropped up. But congratulations to the Desolation server for being world first, and hopefully Blackgate and the other servers will follow suit as well. But the whole point of the video that I want to make here is just to give you kind of my thoughts and analysis of this type of content. And I'm going to start with the positive comments. Those are albeit a little bit shorter. But the positive is I love that we're getting more large scale group content, and I love that we're getting more challenging content. If you've heard me speak in my videos, and if you heard me talk about this on Guildcast, I have been saying this for a long time. We need more things to do with our guilds, and we need things that challenge us and make it harder. And the good news about the challenging part is it definitely seems like, ArenaNet has been listening to this. Over the summer, we got a couple things that were difficult. We got the Liadri fight and the Queen's Gauntlet. We've got the candidate trials. What was it? Tier 3 or Tier 4? I forget. Whatever the hardest one of those. That was really difficult. The revamp for Tequatl fight, the Tribulation mode, and Super Adventure Box. So there are some things that are coming out that appeal to players who really want to challenge themselves. Now, those are all very different types of content. They're not all like boss fights and stuff like that. But challenging content is my point. And I think we need more things like that. And the other thing that I enjoyed about this fight in particular is some of the mechanics are really interesting. In one of the worms, in one of the worm fights that you go to, the Amber Worm, you actually have to get swallowed whole by the worm. And then when you're inside the worm, you have to cut your way out of its stomach, and then it spits you across the ground, and then you actually have to throw a spear that you found in his stomach at his head to make him vulnerable. So mechanics like this are pretty interesting, and I think overall it's a really fun boss fight. The one thing I don't like about the mechanics of it, and I don't know if there's a great solution to how Guild Wars 2 has structured these things, but still, the main fail condition in this fight is an enrage timer. And most of the boss fights, that's what makes it challenging, is that you have a limited amount of time to do it. And I don't love that. But I think with being able to waypoint and being able to revive people from a down state, I'm not sure there's too many different ways they can actually design a boss fight that has fail conditions other than time. So they might just be in a catch-22 where it's difficult for them to kind of do anything else besides that. So those are the things on the positive side. Now, I do have a lot of comments to make about the fight in general. I made a lot of these same observations and critiques back when Tequatl was spawned. I was part of the Blackgate world first kill of Tequatl, and then I still made a video just like this, kind of analyzing and critiquing, why I think certain things should be improved and changed if they're going to do more boss fights like this in the future. And most of the feedback, and I think a lot of the community echoes this sentiment, most of the feedback is revolving around the fact that there's overflow servers. And what they do is they make these boss fights that are zone, anybody in the zone can jump in and help. But there's a cap to the number of people who can be in that zone at once, right? You can't just have like 3,000 people on the one map and fighting the boss. So they cap it around 150. I don't know if that's the exact number, but that's around the right number. It's about 150 people. So what happens is, as soon as the patch went live, all the players who want to get this Jungle Wurm kill, they flock to all of the servers that are very populated already and have the best chance of actually killing the boss. Blackgate was full instantly. Like the Blackgate Bloodtide Coast map was full. That's my server. We killed Tequatl first. We were the World vs. World Season 1 champions in North America. So it's a very popular server for people to try to get their content done because they know that there's going to be organized players there. Desolation server in the EU is a similar thing. There's a few handful of servers at the top that this happens to. So instantly, my own server, I can't get onto Bloodtide Coast. So I tried to do it on the Overflow servers a couple times, and I didn't expect to win, and it was my first time really doing the fight, and of course we did terribly. In fact, I don't think we managed, in like the 2 or 3 attempts I tried on Overflow, to actually damage any of the worms at all. So it becomes... So what happens is, once you start getting serious about getting this kill, you log in and you find friends or guildmates or people on a voice chat, and you ask for a taxi. Now, anybody who's been doing this, knows the full story and how this works, but I want to kind of put this out there for anybody who isn't aware that this is going on or might be new to this. I just want to be clear. So what you do is you join a group of people that are already on the map, on Blackgate or whatever map you want to get to. And then in the upper left-hand corner, you click on their portraits, you right-click on their portraits, and you click Join in Bloodtide Coast. You might have seen that in the intro of the video. And that is... it'll then give you a message that the map is full, and you hit escape, and then you click again. And like every second or so, you're clicking on this and trying to get in. And what you're doing is you're hoping that one person disconnects or drops offline or logs off, and that you're the first person to click that button when they do that so you can get their spot on the map. It is a very tedious and frustrating and painful experience to do that over and over again just to get a shot at doing this boss fight on a map where you have a chance to beat it. And that's just for me, because Blackgate is my server. I get that option. If you're not on Blackgate and you're trying to guest over to Blackgate, then you can't even right-click and join. You actually have to join a party and then zone in and out from an adjacent zone, which takes like twice as long and really diminishes your chances of being able to do it. So it's even more painful for somebody that's not on the server. Once you get, let's say you do get lucky enough to get in, or you try to get in right after they lose an attempt, then it's a little bit easier because people are dropping offline in frustration. You get into the map. Once you're in there, you feel, or at least I feel, compelled not to lose my spot, right? I don't want to get, I don't want to go through that again. I want to continue to have attempts at the worm, but he only spawns every 2 hours. So there's usually about an hour and a half between the failure and when it starts again of you just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. You can't go explore the living world, right? You can't log in an alt. You can't go to Lion's Arch to do, some crafting. You can't play Guild Wars 2, basically. You basically sit there and do nothing for an hour and a half and wait for the another chance to fight the boss. And it's really frustrating. And then what happens is people go AFK, right? I'll go, make dinner for my kids, or I'll help them with homework, or I will, do some laundry, or do whatever I need to do. And I just keep checking back on my computer, make sure I don't log out. And I was really, pretty good about, actually, I don't think I missed any attempts. There was one day where I went from 10 a.m. in the morning through 2 a.m. the next day. So what is that? 12 hours, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours straight. I did basically every 2 hours I attempted the boss. And I kept coming back to my computer and making sure I didn't get, logged out. Now, what happens is there's players that do that, but they go AFK and they don't make it back for whatever reason. And now you're starting a boss fight that takes 150 people to beat. And maybe 10 people or 15 people stay at the waypoint because they're AFK. And the reason, you can't blame them because they don't want to lose their spot, but at the same time, they're hurting our chances of doing it. There's no way to kick them out and get fresh people in. So, I mean, that's one problem. Another problem is it's hard to play with your guildmates or your friends, right? That was the positive I said. We need more group content for your guild and stuff like that. Well, you can't always play with your friends. Your guildmates log in. They're like, hey, what's going on? We're doing the worm. Oh, can we join you? Well, you can try. You can spam that button for 40 minutes and hopefully you get a spot. So that's another problem. A third problem is the people that you're playing with in the zone, you have no control over who it is. It could be any random person, right? We've had attempts where people show up and they're showing up on a non-max level character. Okay, this is the hardest content in the game, and now we have no control over this level 60 something person joining us, or it could be a level 80 person, but who knows? Maybe they're in all green gear. Maybe they don't know how to spec their character. Maybe they're a spec that really doesn't help. Maybe their gear doesn't have sigils or runes in it. You don't know these things. And yet, these are the people that are doing this hardcore content with you. Now, in a raiding situation, I'm going to make a couple parallels to World of Warcraft because I have a lot of experience with World of Warcraft. I was a raid leader and a guild leader for 7 years in that game. So I know a lot about what it takes to take out really hard boss content, but also fail at that boss content as well and dealing with that. Because this is not a complaint about how challenging the boss is. It's a complaint about how it's structured in the open world and the difficulties that are associated with that. So in a World of Warcraft raiding situation, we would never allow people that were unprepared or didn't have the right, character, gear situation, or you couldn't have a lower level character like join you because you need everybody on their A game, and if they're not on their A game, you're going to fail and waste everybody's time. And in this situation, you don't have control about who comes into the group. Now, let's say you're not even trying to be exclusive. You don't care who it is. You don't care if their gear is under par or whatever. You just want everybody to play. The problem with this situation is also with the hour and a half wait, you lose people every single attempt. I would say, I don't have exact numbers obviously, but I would say there's probably a good 20 to 30 people that you lose and gain between each attempt, that hour and a half wait. And what that means is the commanders, the people that are stepping up and actually leading this thing on voice chat, have to go over every minute detail about the fight every single time, and it becomes a broken record. And in a raiding situation, when you're playing World of Warcraft, you will have a 3 or 4 hour time period where you say, all right, we're going to raid, we're going to do this new boss. You get on voice chat, the leader will explain the fight, and then that's the only time you have to explain the fight, once at the start of the night, and then you just tweak the strategy in between attempts and you get going again. In this, it's painful after 16 hours in a row of hearing the same fight explained over and over again for those few people that have never done it before. It's challenging. And the other thing, as I mentioned, that 3 or 4 time slot, or 3 or 4 hour time period in like World of Warcraft, during that time period on a new boss, we might fail on that boss 25, 30 times, learn a lot about the fight and log off and come back the next day or maybe the day after and try again. You got to have fresh eyes. You got to, there's diminishing returns that set in. Well, in that 16-hour marathon that I was talking about earlier, In that 16-hour period, I only tried the boss 8 times. 8 times in 16 hours. That is very little playing for a whole lot of boredom and sitting and waiting around. Now, obviously, I wasn't sitting at my keyboard for a lot of it, but I was surprised at how many people on the Blackgate TeamSpeak, they just sat there and they talked about what went wrong that previous attempt. When you have an hour and a half to brood about like what happened that past attempt to make you fail, I mean, that's just a breeding ground for frustration. It was interesting to listen to some of that. So overall, I think there's a lot of problems with it. And I didn't even mention things like your drop off line. All right, I guess I will mention it because it is something that happens several times in a World of Warcraft type game. All right, you're fighting a boss, you drop offline, you log back in, and you rejoin your players, and you could still help with the boss fight. In this, we had a commander during mid-attempt, and he was leading us for like 10 hours straight on voice. He was the one that was in charge of commanding one of the 3 groups. He drops offline in the middle of the fight, and he instantly loses his spot and gets replaced by someone who's been clicking on that thing over and over again. He can't get back in, and it doesn't matter how dedicated he was, how much he was doing to help the thing. He was out, and somebody else was in. So things like that. I think you get the point at this. So what's the solution? Where am I going with all this? Now, Guild Wars 2 has long been known for wanting to break the mold in the MMO genre, right? And that was one of the main things that attracted me to this game, was that they took a look at everything that was typical in the MMO genre, and they wanted to make it fresh, and they wanted to innovate and change it. And they've made a very different MMO. There's no other MMO that's quite like Guild Wars 2, in my opinion. And there's good things about that and bad things. There's some things that worked really well and some things that haven't worked out that great. It seems like they want to have large group content be in the open world. And I think that unless there's some changes in the works or something coming down the line, if they continue to put things out like this, it's just not going to hold my interest. And that's sad, because this is the content for me. I'm not a PvP player, or I don't play PvP very often. World versus World doesn't interest me. I like dungeons and large-scale PvE content. And if you can't attract a person who loves that kind of content to do these type of boss encounters, then there's a problem. So I really think that in this situation, the solution is pretty obvious, and it's something that a lot of other games already do. There has to be instanced. You have to have these large-scale bosses in an instance. I know ArenaNet doesn't want to have raiding like everybody else does, and maybe there's some unique way that they can spin it. But this needs to be instanced so that you can plan with your guild a night saying, hey, we're going to do the Great Jungle Wurm tonight with the guild. Let's get our 30 people online. Let's get 10, 12, whatever number of people they tune it to. Let's get those people online at a specific time, and let's strategize and try to beat this really difficult content together. Wouldn't that be fun? You can play with your friends and your guildmates and pick who goes in, and have it in a condensed time frame that everyone can schedule. And let's do some raiding. Now, I know Arena has gone on record in interviews and stuff and said that they're not really looking at larger group instanced fights like this or encounters, but I really hope that they reconsider, and after the feedback that they hear from both Tequatl and this Great Jungle Wurm, that it's something that the players really would like. Call it guild mission bosses or guild mission assassinations or something. Make it part of the guild mission system, but make it so that the guilds themselves who want to do it all together as a group and schedule it and not wait an hour and a half between attempts and not have to worry about a whole bunch of different factors that I already mentioned in this video. I really think that is the way to make this content work in this game. And I hope that, enough of the community speaks out or shares this video or, goes on the forums or goes on Reddit and different places and kind of make your voice heard. I've seen several posts about it before already, and that's really what I have to say about it. Now, and I just hope that my points in this aren't kind of nullified by the fact that I haven't killed the boss yet. Oh, he would be saying different things if he was actually involved in a kill at this point, and that's just totally not true. Again, I was part of the world first Tequatl kill back in September. You can watch my video after that time period. I think it was a Tyria Talk video where I put out thoughts on Tequatl, and I said many of the same things right then, that I had a ton of fun, and it was a great experience to actually kill this and be part of the world first, but there's problems with it. So that's going to wrap things up. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you agree? How else could they do it? But maybe there's a different solution besides just making it instanced that you could think of. Oh, before I go, there is one other suggestion that I've seen, and this would help things. I don't think it's perfect, but this would help things. They said to have a list of overflow servers, so that if you have a large guild, let's say 30 or 40, 50 people, and you want to get them all in the same one, you can actually look at the overflow servers and how full they are, and then click, and everyone can go say, all right, everyone's going to join, Overflow 13, and we're going to go there. Kind of like the district system in Guild Wars 1. That would help some of the issues. It wouldn't solve all of them, but it's definitely another idea that you can kind of toss around and see if that would work. But that's going to wrap things up. Please like, favorite, and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when future videos are released. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.